Hey gang, and welcome back. Just a reminder, you can now use the promo code MTGMudsta, all caps, at flipsidegaming.com. You'll get 10% off orders over $10 and help with the channel at the same time. Thank you for joining me once more, my friends. This week we have another exciting EDH game lined up for you. Regrettably, I wasn't able to bring my pop filter, so what you're getting is an uncut and raw voice. This week, Bree is playing her Scorpion God deck and keeps a hand with Mud Button Torchrunner, Sign in Blood, Toxic Deluge, Perilous Mirror, Forbidden Orchard, Swamp, and a Mountain. Pat is back to redeem himself and has Jor Kadeen, and he keeps a hand with Day of Judgment, Darksteel Plate, Boros Keyrune, Boros Garrison, Plains, Reliquary Tower, and a Mountain. Matt is playing his Gisa Geralf deck and keeps a hand with 2 Swamps, Dimir Signet, Carrion Feeder, Cemetery Reaper, Cryptghast, and Lord of the Undead. Lastly, Sean is playing his Rhonas or RKO deck and keeps a hand with Forest, Krosan Grip, Sylvan Library, Tranquil Thicket, Nature's Way, Savage Punch, and Time to Feed. Bree wins the die roll and starts us off. Bree plays a Swamp and passes. We have a strong start from Pat as he plays a Mountain and casts Soul Ring. Sean plays a Tranquil Thicket tapped and passes. Matt plays a Swamp and casts Carrion Feeder. Bree plays a Mountain and casts Perilous Mirror. Pat pays 3 to cast Boros Keyrune, and then plays Boros Garrison, bouncing his basic back to his hand. Sean plays a Forest and casts Sylvan Library. Matt plays a Swamp and casts Dimir Signet. For Bree's turn, she plays Reliquary Tower and casts Mud Button Torchrunner. Moving to combat, she swings the mirror at Matt for 1. Pat plays a Mountain, and at this point now has more mana than he's ever had while being on camera, and he casts Intangible Virtue and then drops a Darksteel Plate before passing turn. Sean uses his library's ability, but chooses not to keep any extra cards. He then plays a Forest in his main phase, and Rhonas hits the field. Sean then passes turn. Matt plays a Temple of Deceit, scrying the top card and keeping it there, and then casts Talisman of Dominance and passes. Bree plays and takes 2 from an untapped Blood Crypt, which she then uses to cast Falconwrath Aristocrat. Moving straight to combat, the Aristocrat demonstrate a severe lack of manners by smashing into Sean for 4, and the Torchrunner and the Mirror head towards Pat for 2. Pat plays a Plains and casts his general, Jor Kadeen the Prevailer. Pat then gears up his general with the Darksteel Plate and passes turn. Sean once again uses his Sylvan Library but keeps no extra cards. He then plays a Forest in his main phase. Sean then casts Ulvenwald Tracker and passes turn. Matt plays a Tainted Isle and pays 4 to cast Cryptghast. He then taps 2 of his Swamps to cast Lord of the Undead, and Matt uses the extra 1 mana to extort the table for 1 life and gains 3 life. Bree plays a Forbidden Orchard for her land for turn and swings the Aristocrat at Matt for 4. She then casts Sign in Blood, targeting herself to lose 2 life and draw 2 cards. Pat plays his copy of Reliquary Tower and casts Gisela in his second main phase before passing. Sean plays a Maze of Ith for his land for turn and uses Time to Feed to deal with Pat's Troublesome Angel. Sean also gains 3 life from the spell. At the end of Sean's turn, Bree sacrifices the Perilous Mirror to the Aristocrat, targeting Matt's Cryptghast with 2 damage. Matt uses Carrion Feeder's ability to sacrifice creatures, and sacrifices the Cryptghast for his own benefit. Matt plays a Swamp for turn, and casts Gisa Geralf. He mills himself for 4, hitting one of my favorite zombies, Lich Lord of Unks. Moving to combat, Matt swings his slightly bigger Carrion Feeder into Bree for 3. Bree casts Necroskitter during her first main phase, and moving to combat, begins a grudge match with Matt by swinging the Aristocrat at him for 4. For Pat's turn, he plays a Mountain and swings Jor Kadeen into Matt for 8 general damage. Sean boldly takes 8 to draw 2 extra cards thanks to his Sylvan Library, and in his main phase, he casts Nature's Way on Rhonas and targets Bree Necroskitter. Bree sacrifices the Skitter to her Vampire, giving it indestructible for a turn. Sean then passes turn, and Matt uses his Lord of the Undead to put the Corpse Augur into his hand. In Matt's main phase, he doesn't wait long to bring the Corpse Augur out, and moves to combat, swinging the Carrion Feeder and Gisa Geralf at Bree. Bree puts the mirror in front of the feeder, and sacrifices it to try and deal 2 damage to Matt's Lord of the Undead. Matt in turn decides to keep feeding his feeder, and sacrifices the Lord to his 1-drop. Bree then takes 4 commander damage, and in Matt's second main phase, he uses Gisa Geralf's ability to cast Lord of the Undead from his graveyard before passing. For her turn, Bree casts a Soul Ring, which she uses to help pay for Gonti. She uses Gonti's Enter the Battlefield trigger and targets Pat. Bree then moves to combat and swings the Aristocrat at Sean. Sean activates his Ulvenwald Tracker to have Rhonas and the Aristocrat fight. Not wanting to lose her Vampire, Bree sacrifices the newly cast Gonti to give the Aristocrat indestructible once more. For Pat's turn, he moves straight to combat, and this time Jor Kadeen hits Bree for 8. With no land for turn and nothing to cast, Pat passes to Sean. Sean takes 4 to keep an extra card thanks to Sylvan Library, and plays a Ghost Quarter followed by casting Moss Diamond. And as he's unable to attack, Sean passes turn. At the end of Sean's turn, Matt sacrifices the Augur and uses its on-death trigger targeting Bree to draw 4 cards and lose 4 life. Matt plays Temple of the False God, and Grave Titan joins the party. Matt then casts Gravecrawler, which he sacrifices to the Carrion Feeder and repeats the process once more. Moving to combat, Matt swings Gisa Geralf plus the Feeder once more at Bree for 11 damage. Matt then passes his turn. At the end of turn, Bree taps her Forbidden Orchard to give Sean a Spirit token. Bree heads straight to combat, swinging her Falconwrath Aristocrat at Matt once more. In her second main phase, Bree casts Toxic Deluge and pays 4 life to wipe away most of the board. Sean then uses Ulvenwald Tracker to try and help finish off the Grave Titan, but Matt uses the opportunity to really beef up his Carrion Feeder and sacrifices all of his creatures to it. Bree then casts Shrouded Lore, targeting Pat. Pat gives her back a previously killed Perilous Mirror, and Bree is happy to recast the mirror before passing turn. Pat plays a Mountain, and recasts and re-equips Jor Kadeen. Sean takes another 4 to keep an extra card, and he plays a Forest before casting Rite of Passage. Sean then tries to savagely punch Matt's Carrion Feeder, but Matt doesn't want to give Sean the satisfaction and sacrifices the zombie to its own ability. Matt plays a Cabal Coffers for his turn and recasts Gisa Geralf, milling himself for another 4 and hitting 3 zombies. Matt then recasts the Lord of the Undead from the graveyard with Gisa Geralf and brings out the Tagalong Gravecrawler for funsies. For Bree's turn, she untaps and casts Staff of Nin before passing to Pat. For Pat's turn, he casts Sunforger during his first main phase and equips it onto Jor Kadeen. Moving to combat, Pat declares Jor Kadeen is going at Matt, and Bree, realizing she can't keep up with Matt's endless stream of zombies, tries to buy some good faith with him by tapping the Forbidden Orchard to give him a spirit. Moving to blockers, Matt is pretty okay with chumping Jor Kadeen with his newly made spirit, and Pat passes through his remaining phases after combat to pass turn. Sean uses his library once more, as he has since the turn he casted, but he doesn't keep any extra cards this time. Moving to his main phase, Sean casts Bane of Progress to try and deal with Pat's arsenal. Pat responds to the Bane being on the stack, and activates his Sunforger to find a way to save his stuff. He sadly doesn't have a Teferi's Protection, but he does have a Boros Charm which will work in a pinch. He obviously chooses the option to deal 4 damage, make his stuff indestructible. With Bane of Progress entering, its ability goes on the stack, and Bree doesn't really want to deal with a huge beater from Sean, so she taps her Staff of Nin, dealing 1 to the Perilous Mirror to kill it. She then uses Mirror's Death Trigger to deal 2 damage, killing the Bane before its trigger resolves and it gains all those counters. The Enter the Battlefield ability still resolves, destroying all enchantments and artifacts, but Sean doesn't get any tasty counters. With nothing else, he passes turn. For Matt's turn, he casts Sidisi Undead Vizier during his first main phase, exploiting itself to tutor for a card. Matt then casts a Cemetery Reaper and passes turn. Bree taps out for her turn, giving Sean a Spirit to cast Black Sun Zenith where X is 4. With no land to play or mana left, Bree passes turn. Pat drops a Platinum Angel during his first main phase, and as he can no longer lose the game, the guys scoop it up. Just kidding, Pat then equips the Angel with Darksteel Plate and passes turn. At this point, Sean realizes that Pat hasn't taken a lot of damage, so he casts Stuffy Doll, naming Pat, and passes to Matt. Matt plays a Crypt of Agadim, which comes into play tapped. He then casts Phyrexian Arena and Rooftop Storm before passing to Bree. Bree casts a Dark Petition during her main phase, having Spell Mastery, and gains 3 black mana and gets to go tutor for a card. She finds and casts Dismember using the 3 black mana she got from the petition to kill Pat's Angel. With nothing else, she passes turn. Pat's turn is over quite quickly as he plays a contested Warzone and casts Jor Kadeen before moving to equip it with his Darksteel Plate once more. Bree decides to proactively remove this potential threat and casts Snuff Out for 4 life rather than paying the mana cost. With nothing else, Pat passes to Sean. Sean all but taps out on his main phase to cast Spearbreaker Behemoth. He then skips through his combat steps surprisingly and passes to Matt. Matt draws an extra card for his turn from the arena and takes 1 damage. He then activates the Crypt of Agadim to generate 11 black mana and taps 1 blue to recast Gisa Geralf. He then casts Sidisi from his graveyard for free thanks to the Rooftop Storm and exploits itself to go tutor for a card. Matt then casts Altar of Dementia, and Bree notes that this is how the game is going to end. Matt then casts Macabre the Unhallowed, and is able to bring out Gravecrawler for free. He then cycles through the combo, milling at all of his opponent's libraries, and just in case for an Eldrazi Shuffler, Matt throws out a Triskelion to complete the dreaded double combo. Game review time. I think there were a lot of interesting plays this game, and I'm still not entirely sure if Bane of Progress worked how we thought it did. I think we ruled on it correctly, but we'll have to see in the comments. I'm sure people are disappointed that it was a combo win, but combos are still a valid part of EDH, and you have to respect them. Matt went for it when basically all of his opponents were tapped out, so you can't really fault him for going for it. Had Sean not cast the Spearbreaker Behemoth, he would have been able to use Krosan Grip to deal with Matt's Altar of Dementia. It was great to see that Pat and Bree were able to get into this game and actually be active participants. I thought Pat's Jor Kadeen deck was pretty cool, even though he only cast pretty much 2 creatures, Jor Kadeen and the Platinum Angel. Bree's Scorpion God deck is basically her Lizolda deck, but she interchanges the commanders when she wants. She likes the option of being able to have card draw in her command zone, although I think Lizolda is probably easier to enable than the Scorpion God is. Sean's fight deck is a lot of fun, but he started to shift out some of the weaker cards for better and more consistent ones like Ulvenwald Tracker. I think it'll certainly play better once it's more refined, but I know I'll miss the Fight Stag and Cartouche of Strength. Please be sure to tune in every Monday and Thursday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for a guaranteed new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at MTGMudsta. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/MTGMudsta. And lastly, you can check me out when I stream at twitch.tv/MTGMudsta. This video is brought to you in part by support from my Patreons. If you're looking for a way to help out the channel, please be sure to visit my Patreon link below. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more.